Welcome to a pivotal moment in the world of broadcast as we proudly present the Men's Mental Health Show featuring the renowned Larry Mabry in collaboration with the Maassen Group. This essential exploration of men's mental health wouldn't be possible without the invaluable support of Rainier Avenue Radio World. Now, let's dive into this crucial conversation with Larry Mabry and the Maassen Group. Your mental well-being matters. Here's Larry Mabry.
Hey, what's going on? What's going on, guys? Just checking in on this beautiful March 10th, 2025. Just want to kind of tap in with everyone. You know, today I wanted to talk about the number one thing that we need to be successful. But I don't know if you guys are familiar with that one clip where our one of our comedians, I think it was Dave Chappelle, when keeping it real goes too far, right? I think we've all had those situations where we kept it real and it gave us real consequences. And so, you know, a couple friends of mine were talking about, you know, what is the determining factor that helps people become successful, right? Is it the grit? Is it hard work? Is it determination? And, you know, I went to a workshop and I was speaking amongst colleagues and friends, and it was very interesting. And they talked about this particular point. And you'd be surprised, you know, what are some things you would think that people would need in order to be successful, right? You would think determination, right? Because you would need to work hard. That's not the number one thing, though. Yes, you would need that action, right? You need to put in that action to be successful. However, that's not the number one thing. You know, I'm curious to see if you guys are out there. Go ahead and chime in and let me know, what do you think would be the main thing you need in order to be successful? You'd be surprised. The number one thing you need to be successful. A lot of people were surprised when they heard this, but believe it or not, the number one thing that you need to be successful is emotional intelligence. Wow, that's powerful. Well, but if you think about it, right? So if you're trying to work towards something, you're going to hit some walls, you're going to hit some challenges, you're going to hit some points that are going to be challenging. How do you overcome those things? Do you just give up? Do you just quit? Do you just say, you know what, I can't do this? You have to have that emotional intelligence in order to kind of maneuver around that. Raise your hand out there if you've been in situations where you've had challenges and you're trying to figure out something and you hit a wall. The first thing, depending on if you have those coping skills or if you have those problem solving skills, the first thing you might do is say, oh, man, I can't go further. And you got one or two choices. Either you connect with somebody who could help you circumvent around that situation. You may talk to a peer, you may talk to a coworker, you may talk to a family member, someone who has some more wisdom in that regard to help you expand out to another level, or you just quit and do something else, right? But you need to have that emotional intelligence in order to manipulate through that situation, right? So why am I talking about that? Well, that's important because if you guys know, this is a men's mental health show, and one of the main things that we as men are working on is our emotional intelligence, because no matter what you have in your life, whether you have a female, whether you have a wife, whether you have a child, whether you have a job, whether you have a career, whether you're building a business, guess what? Your emotions are going to be involved, whether you're paying a bill, if you think about it. And so the biggest thing is, if you can't control, or if you don't have any type of understanding of your emotions, then basically any situation that happens outside of you is going to basically dictate how you're going to roll out here. And so it's important to basically know how to maneuver through that, how to handle your emotions, how to deal with it, how to self-regulate, and how to take action to move forth so that you can have a successful life. So I want to talk about that. So earlier I talked about making sure you guys have emotional intelligence. What's another thing you would need? Well, you got to take action, right? You got to be proactive, working towards your goals, making sure you doing what you need to do to be successful. Every time you do something new, it's going to always feel uncomfortable in the beginning. And sometimes that uncomfortability can cause fear. It can cause frustration. It can cause a little bit of confusion or a little bit of scariness. But you still got to push past that. Raise your hand if you've done something and it was like uncomfortable for the first time. I remember when I was first learning how to drive, it was very scary, right? I'm behind the seat of the car. I'm looking around my right and left, trying to figure out what's going on. I'm getting used to the pedals. I'm getting used to, the steering wheel. Plus, my dad was sitting on the side of me saying things, cars on the right, I had a radio off. so many things are going on at once, and so you have to kind of practice it enough times to feel comfortable with it. But then once you get comfortable with it, guess what? You become pretty professional, become pretty good at it. So the reason why I'm saying that is because we got to take action. And I would say I'm pretty good with driving now, right? Another thing too we want to think about as far as being successful is a growth mindset. What does that mean? Well, whenever we have a growth mindset, when we have a challenge, we think about, okay, is there a way for us to come up with a solution with this challenge, right? So for example, think about it. Back in the day, for those people that know, we had typewriters, right? I'm saying a little bit about my age here. Well, I remember in 8th grade, I learned how to type on a typewriter. I mean, now we have technology, we have phones, we have laptops. But interestingly enough, somebody said, you know what if we came up with a solution, right? When you used to type, it actually was on paper. Used to type it out and, pull the paper out and then submit it now. But now we actually have, somebody came up with ideas and we came up with a solution as far as creating paper, but doing it digitally, right? Same type of keyboard, but what we did was we kind of shifted, right? Coming up with a growth mindset. We said, okay, can we come up with something different, something better, something a little bit more efficient? And actually, when they did that, they actually invented the email system. We do a lot of things digitally. I mean, you got businesses, 7-8 figure businesses that are now exclusively online. Think about Amazon, back in the day. Think about like those bookstores that used to be around, right? And I don't know if you guys know this. I want to share this story real quick. There's a time where I think it was Blockbuster, right? I'm again dating myself here. If you know, Blockbuster was a very successful, I want to say, video type of company where you can actually go in and, you can rent videos, VHS type videos, and you would go in there, and I would go there with my family back in the D. We'd get caught up all the time. Every week we would go there, the whole, before the Netflix and chill, it was all, getting caught up with the video every weekend, right? Or you go to the movies. Well, ironically, while they were successful, I would say at the height of their success, a company you guys might not know, Netflix, came to Blockbuster and they said, hey, we feel like everything's going to be digitized at some point. And so we want to give you guys a venture where maybe you guys can invest in us. And then we're going to create something digitally. Well, they laughed at them. Man, people going to be here all the time, man. We don't need to worry about that. Well, yeah. So slow and behold, what happens? Boom. All of a sudden, Blockbuster, you don't really hear about them, but you don't hear about Netscape. You hear about Netflix. And ironically, I remember when Netflix used to send the CD. Back in the day, they used to send the CD through the mail, and you would send it back. And I remember one of the friends I was kicking it with, she would order the CDs, and they would come in. I'm like, how does that work? And it's every once in a while, she would get a CD, and then she would submit it back. And all of a sudden, they went digital, and then it just exploded, right? The CD. And so now the fact that they're digitized, they changed the game because now they can stream services online, but they had to have a growth mindset. Right. And I'm sharing that because in that analogy, you notice that Blockbuster laughed at them. Right. And so when you have a growth mindset, you're thinking about stuff differently outside the box, people are going to laugh at you. But if you know that God has given you a particular vision, or you feel like, okay, this is kind of the way we should go. Well, the cool thing is you're going to find people that are going to support you. Right. And they're going to see your vision and they're going to support with you. The next factor of being successful is grit. What does that mean? Well, basically, you have to have the perseverance and the resilience, which is very essential to overcoming all obstacles for achieving your goal. Now, I'm going to share this with you. Grit, I would say pretty much coming from Detroit, I think I'm a little bit biased here, but I would say 99% of the people that come from Detroit, I would say, or New York or a bigger city, they're kind of born with grit because I would say just growing up in the D, like people gonna show you, right? I think about very famous people like Eric Thomas. He's a very prominent speaker from Detroit. I think about Eminem, right? You guys know about Eminem. He's from the D. Big Sean from the D, right? A lot of prominent people that kind of know how to hustle and just push through no matter what barriers they have. But do you have to be from the D to do that? No, you could be from Washington, but basically it's having that ability to fight through, to be strong, no matter what happens, you push through it. And I want to put this out here because sometimes if you think about like Eminem, he had to be by himself, right? He was a white young man in a rap game that was predominantly African American. You got to be pretty strong and pretty skilled to push through that, right? Because people are going to challenge you. But because of his skill set and the fact that he just didn't give up, I mean, people basically they were like, okay, we gonna stick with him, right? But you got to have that grit, right? That basically you just having that determination, that perseverance, that resilience to overcome any obstacle and stay focused on your goal. Another thing you got to have to be successful, a positive attitude, right? People are going to come against you. They're going to fight you. They're going to say, oh, you can't do it. You have to sometimes be your best cheerleader and lift yourself up. And I would also say, too, I mentioned this before, be mindful of your Jedi Council, right? Again, for those people who just tuning in now, your Jedi Council are those people around you that have different skill sets to kind of help you grow. So tap into your Jedi Council, right? These are like the Yodas. These are like the individuals around you that are very, very, very knowledgeable. They're very skilled at what they do, and they kind of help pump into you. They help pull into you, push into you to help you be successful, right? They're really good at what they do. They're going to push you, but they're going to help you tighten up your skill set. They're going to keep you positive. And again, your Jedi Council are people that are really good at what they do. And because they are like the forefront of what they do, they're going to be able to kind of push you to get to your next level for yourself, right? Another thing you need to have too is self-understanding and valuation. What does that mean? Well, you need to understand your self-value, right? Significantly, a lot of people who are successful, because they typically think outside the box, they usually kind of go on a path. I would almost say the best way I can explain it is, you know how you have that one guy that's going down the wrong way of the one-way road? You have to kind of have that mentality, right? You're going upstream and everyone's kind of going downstream, but specifically for you, you feel it. And there's some things that's just kind of guiding you, even though it may look kind of awkward, right? But there's still a path for you, right? And you feel in your heart, and because you value yourself, you realize that you're giving your contribution to society. I think about someone like Steve Jobs, right? A lot of people don't know, but Steve Jobs, he was actually he was actually fired from his own position when he was in Apple. And I remember listening to him, and he spoke about some really interesting things. He talked about some life lessons he learned. But ironically, through him losing that job when he was at Apple, he actually started Next, which is a company that formed Pixar. And then Pixar actually ended up being bought out by Apple, and he became successful again. But I share that because the whole concept of what he was focused on was something so like avant-garde. It was so different. It was so revolutionary at the time. And ironically, people may not know this, but he was inspired to do the Mac from a calligraphy class that he had. So, and it's funny because I think that creativity is really important. He had a calligraphy class, and if you notice, if you look at any of the Apples or the Mac technology, it's always colorful, right? It's always very beautiful as far as the visual type of things of that nature. So, making sure you know your value, and that means that even though you may stand alone, you have to be okay with that. But you got to align to what's important to you, even though other people may not see this, right? And it's so funny because I would say that as you stay within your value and stay within yourself, all of a sudden you'll notice that people will just start following you because they're feeling the same thing. You'll notice that people start getting out of their positions, starting to leave kind of what they're doing, and you kind of become like a force within your own, right? And so that's important, right? And so let's talk about that again. Let's talk about some of the things we need to be successful. One, emotional intelligence, taking action on some things or goals that you have. Make sure you're having a growth mindset and grit. Also, a positive attitude. And sometimes you might need to check in with people to make sure you're positive. And I want to talk about that one for a little bit because I noticed early on, I would say many, many years ago, I didn't really have a very good positive attitude. And I noticed this because the people that I was around, they had like piss poor attitudes. And so I had to do like a self-reflection and say, you know what? Why am I choosing to be around these people? Right. And I had gotten to a point where I realized that growth is a choice. And so if you don't like your situation, then make another choice, right? And I want to say it again. If you don't like your situation, make another choice. And I remember when I was trying to figure out like what I wanted to do when I had dropped out of school back in college. I had a particular professor. His name was Dr. Seth Langston. And I remember I was trying to figure out, because society was telling me, oh, you got to go to school, you got to get a degree, you got to do this, and I was working, I was trying to figure it out. And I was like, okay. And he ended up talking to me, and I was playing tennis with his son and that. And he just was like, let me talk to you for a second. He sat me down and we would go to BW3s, and he just started talking to me. And he was like, you know what, Larry, everybody needs the support. And he was talking about what the challenge he had when he was trying to pursue his PhD. And he said that he had a mentor that was kind of on him, like, hey, you need to do it. And he was kind of like that for me. And basically he said, look, bro, you go back to school, I'll help you. And he was a man of his word. And I ended up kind of going back and being supportive and really, really doing really well with that. But I share that because he was part of my Jedi Council. But also he was very positive. Every time I said something negative, he was like, nope, you need to think higher. So he was kind of holding me accountable, which is really, really important. Having someone positive hold you accountable, and, be open to listen to what they're saying. Because if you don't really like your life, then you need to change it, but you got to be willing to change it, right? If you don't choose something that's more successful, then you've already made your choice, right? And I want you to sit with that for a second. So if you're in a place right now and you're not happy with your life, remember you chose that. If you don't want something or you want something different, then make a different choice. Is it going to be hard? Yes, it's going to be difficult. But the way I looked at it is, is life easy now? life isn't easy now. So I'd rather work hard for something that I desire to pursue and have in my life rather than work hard and I'm not happy in life. And so think about that. Right. And then the last one we talked about was self-understanding and valuation. Right. What does that mean? Well, how do you value yourself? Like, what do you think about yourself? And, I want to really talk about this one for a little bit because, like, a lot of people think value is like the car you have. They think about it's the clothes you wear. They think about your swag, the house you live in, and that's not really your value. And you might be like, what? Well, society and the videos and a lot of things we see out in society shows us this, but at the end of the day, it's not even the money you have. Really, the value, honestly, is what you think about yourself. And so, and let me clarify that. There are a lot of people that have a lot of money, right? But they don't think highly of themselves. You have a lot of people who have a lot of, I would say, fame, but they don't think highly of themselves. You have a lot of people that may have a lot of connections or resources, but they don't think very highly of themselves. And so it's important because you don't know a person's situation, how they got there. They could have got it through family affiliation. They could have got it through birthright, right? You don't know. But at the end of the day, it's all about what they feel about themselves. And I want to share this because, I have clients from all different walks of life. And when we have those real conversations, it's really about like, what do you think about yourself, right? And when you have those challenges that come before you and you really have to dig deep within yourself, that's when you truly know what your value is. And I want to put this out here because sometimes those challenging situations, those can be the best determining factor to help you determine to help you determine your value. And I would say the biggest challenges I had in my life, those are the purposes that really drove me to what I wanted and what I didn't want. And so there's a benefit actually to having some of those challenges. But at the end of the day, what value do you have for yourself? Do you love yourself truly? Right? Or are you just trying to look good for the camera? Right? I like to keep it 100. You can see I got love for myself, but I'm just going to be natural. Right? And again, I'm not knocking anybody that's, all dialed up or whatever. I think that's important too. but I think that it's important for you to be authentic with yourself. And so the value that you bring is what's most important. It's not how people perceive you to be. That's really, really important. And society will push you, definitely push you, to help you tap into what's important. And some severs, some relationships you may need to tie off. You may need to break off, because people have showed you their value. Do you value money? Do you value respect? Right? What does success mean to you? Is it how many followers you have? Is it, how many zeros you got in your bank account? Is it, how many shoes you have? Is it how many, ladies you cool with? Is it how many gentlemen you cool with? Right? Is it, how many hours you work at your job? Right? Is it the value you bring to the marketplace? Is it the value that you bring to your business? Right? And so I'm posing these questions to ask you these questions so that you can ask and determine for yourself, where do you put your value? And I would say 2024 and 2025 has really tested people to get them to decide where they're going to draw the line in their value, right? Because if you don't value yourself, then no one knows how to value you. So if you want to tap in, feel free to reach out to me, the Maassen Group at gmail1.com, the Maassen Group 1 at gmail.com. You can feel free to reach out, let me know that you heard me here on Rainier Avenue Radio. We'll make sure we get you a little discount for that. But also too, I just want to thank Rainier Avenue Radio. They've been very, very supportive. Ever since I've been on the air for the past almost 2 years now, it's been cool. Also too, what do you guys think about what we're doing right now? I'm curious to see. I had quite a few people kind of fire back a while back as far as what they thought with the show. We're getting close to spring now, so a lot of cool different buzzes that we could talk about for spring. What are some ideas we have, right? For those people also too, I want to mention we have different events coming up. Peer support counseling, we've been doing that. We got different support things going on within the community, so make sure you guys feel free to reach out for that. And I had someone reach out and say, well, what is that exactly? And so basically what happened was Commerce, they realized that there needed to be some support within the community. They were reaching out top down. They realized the money wasn't really being circulated to the community. So they reached out to some barbers and to beauticians in the community, reached out to me. I reached out, and it's being very successful. And they realized that it's best to support the community from the ground up. And so you can feel free to reach out to me, and we could do what we can to support you. That might mean groceries. That might mean life coaching. That might mean financial literacy. That might just mean to just have a conversation and set some goals to set you up. And if you go through peer support, there's no cost to you. So that could be an advantage for some people, because I know people are thinking, oh man, I got to pay. Well, no, you don't have to pay. You basically would just need to reach out, and we can get you scheduled up and just do an intake. Just have a little conversation, talk to you, and see what we can do to support you. So again, wanted to share that with you guys. I think that'd be very beneficial. All right. Okay. Just want to say a couple things too. My next guest, or the next person will be coming on after me. Make sure you guys reach out, show her some love. Dr. Tracy Harrell. She'll be on Better Together and Living Powerfully. For those people who may know, we had talked in the past. She has a pretty good program. Make sure you guys tap in and see what's going on with her on that. Also too, one other thing I want to share too with you guys. Do you guys feel like what I shared today, as far as you being successful, do you think is relevant? Do you feel like you need more things to be successful? Do you feel like it was enough? I'm curious to see your thoughts. So I want you guys to kind of reach out, let us know. What do you think? Right? Do you feel like some things I missed? Right? Are you successful and I didn't miss any? I missed like totally everything that I said or whatever. Feel free to reach out and let me know. What do you think you need to be successful? And then the question is, what do you determine as being successful? Maybe what I said wasn't relevant for you. So I'm curious to see what you guys feel as far as how do you deem success, and then what do you need to do in order to be successful? Okay. All right, cool. One other thing too I want to share too. Do you feel like mental health is really, really important to you? I'm curious to see. I've had a couple conversations with individuals about this, And I've heard mixed feelings about that. Um, because I'm I'm a life coach. I've had people kind of reach out and say, well, you know what? I don't want to speak to a counselor, and I want to share. I'm actually a life coach, which is different from counseling. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit before we transition. A counselor basically talks about your past, and they usually use the DS5 and they give you a diagnosis. Whereas with me, what we do is we focus on where you're at. We focus on support so we can help you get to the next level you're at through some goals, some smart goals, to help you reach your particular potential. Um, and we don't really talk about the past. I may give you some strategies to kind of deal with some things from there, but we talk more about where you're at, do an evaluation, and kind of move forward with that. Okay, so I just want to kind of address that because I've had some people kind of reach out to me and say, well, what's the difference between counseling and life coaching? So I wanted to share that. I do work with life coaches. I do work with other counselors. I do work with psychologists. I work with a lot of people in the community, energy healers. So a lot of different modalities that could be supportive to help you be successful, right? So feel free to tap in. And if my services can be beneficial, maybe I could tap you into somebody that could better help you. Okay. All right, guys. So real quick, I want to say thank you guys for your time. Looking forward to connecting with you guys next week. Once again, chime in and let me know, is what I said, anything I said, was it beneficial? Do you feel like what I said as far as being successful, the emotional intelligence? Let me know. Feel free to reach out. I'm looking forward to checking in with you guys next week. And without further ado, peace.